Thinking of a way to
all right,
start
welcome
this
back
conversation out.
TRN Time
What was your
Machine,
trick or
and
treat?
we are going back several years
kid.
this week and talk about
Where
classic
I actually
McDonald's.
lived, it was kind
I
of
don't know.
desolate,
Do you have
of
any like
course.
specific
But
memories?
my grandmother
Mick,
lived in
of
town,
going
and
to
she lived on
McDonald's
this
as a
street.
kid?
It was not a
it
one-way
more
street
of
or a dead end or a
event,
cul-de-sac
I
street,
guess,
but
to you,
it had
like
one
it was
long
for me?
straight stretch that
It
she lived
didn't
on.
start out that way.
So we would go, she kind of lived in the middle of
get
it.
a Happy Meal. Hey,
We would go there and park,
But it
and Mom
became
would
an
sit on her
event.
porch with Granny and give out
probably
candy.
around 85.
And I could run up and down
86,
both
maybe,
sides of the
7, 8
street
years
and
old.
be in
My dad traveled a
view
lot,
for, you know, a
like we
quarter
all
mile in
know.
each
And
direction.
when he was gone and
The
my
street
brother
was
wasn't
filled
around,
with
Mom and
older
I would
retired
take off to the
folks
closest town to
who
do
just
her
loved the
shopping on
kids and
Saturday
loved
afternoons,
Halloween
and
and
that
showed
always
it through
included
the
the stop at
treats that they
McDonald's.
provided
Where
for people.
I'd get a
So I
Happy
had a
Meal, she'd get
great
a Big Mac,
Halloween
and we'd sit
experience
and
as a
talk,
kid.
and
We got
play on the
top-notch
playground a
candy,
while,
and
and
another
then she
treat
would
is
end
we're
the
going to
visit
talk
by
about
getting
not
me a
all the
hot
best
caramel
treats.
sundae. And we'd done that probably twice a month, sometimes maybe just once a month. But yeah, it was an event. And when certain Happy Meals would come out that I really wanted, that was an event too. She wouldn't just go get me Happy Meals for whatever it was. If it was something, and I'm going to talk about some of this here in a little bit, something that I was already into, then she would try to make an extra point to make sure that week we went to McDonald's to at least get one Happy Meal during the promotion. So I get something from that. But mine and her visits to McDonald's continued on until I was past the age of Happy Meal. And we were both having a Big Mac combo and sitting there and talking and stuff. So McDonald's
buying VHS tapes.
Yep.
At that time.
Yes, sir. That was one of the things her and I done to connect all through the years, was going to McDonald's together. So a lot of fond memories of McDonald's.
Yeah, I've definitely got some myself. I don't remember specific times or days or anything that the parents would take me there. I do remember a couple birthday parties there, which were great. And we didn't have like the playland or play area that a lot of them do, and a lot of people have really fond memories for. But just the aesthetics of the Happy Meal boxes, the advertising was what really sold me on a lot of this stuff. And of course, they had it during the Saturday morning cartoons and everything, and you would find out that they're doing a special promotion in there of something that you were into, like you were saying. And then it was like begging the parents, can we go to McDonald's for lunch, on Saturday or whatever, over the weekend when the parents were home from work. And that's more or less my memories of going there, and just kind of when I saw something on TV that I had to have and get a Happy Meal, that's when I was excited to go. And when we mainly went, it was more or less on a whim. So that's cool. And I've got specific memories of even just the boxes or containers themselves too. Not necessarily just the toys, which we're going to pick our top 5, but what are some of the containers and boxes you remember?
Well, most of mine are on my list, so I don't want to spoil it. Well, I'll spoil one. When they first debuted the Halloween pails, those things were awesome, because it was too small really to trick or treat in, but just the look of it, and you could use them for other stuff, and the fact that they replaced the normal box with that plastic jack-o'-lantern pail.
Yes.
And then in later years, the Green Witch and the White Ghost. That was a really cool concept that I guess was a big success for them, because they done them year after year after year for a long time.
Yeah, I do remember. Yeah, when they were all just the orange ones and then had different faces before they got into the green and the white ones. I remember that being a big deal, and getting the Halloween gift certificates too. Around that same time. So those are kind of linked together for me. The ones that I remember a Dukes of Hazzard container. One that was orange for the General Lee, and one that was, I think, white for the Roscoe's police car. That was pretty early on a memory. And then there was another one where they did like a spaceship, and it opened up kind of top and bottom. Those two are kind of ingrained in my memories. I don't know what toys that came with those. If there was like Dukes of Hazzard toys, there might have been. Those didn't make my list, but those are the two containers themselves that were just different from the normal box that were great.
In those situations, the box was the toy.
Okay.
Because it was a vacuum form box that once you got your food out, you could put back together, and then you had a spaceship to play with.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and I seen they had like boats and stuff as well you could take and put on the water, and there was a lot of those type of molded containers, that were really great. And I didn't really mention this. It kind of spurred me on to go over to YouTube and do a little tribute video, which had some of those types of containers in there too that I snagged. But I did a tribute video that will debut, I guess maybe when this podcast drops, Mick, of just basically the boxes in the Happy Meal toys pulled from a commercial. And I found this great song. I don't even know who produced the song, because it's on one video that I found on YouTube, and I've tried to Google to give credit where credit is due for this great song, but it's basically just the lyrics are just kind of take you back. They talk about going to McDonald's and getting all the items and the Happy Meal, and I think, what do they say? Golden Smile, I think, is the name of the song or something. But anyway, we'll drop that. That'll help you get a little taste of, beyond of the podcast. But let's get into it, man. Let's talk about our favorite Happy Meal toys from back in the day.
I'll go first, but before I do, I sent Jason a picture of this the other day. I have an accompaniment for this. There is an excellent book by Terry and Joyce Lazansky called McDonald's Happy Meal Toys that I picked up several years ago. And this thing has pictures of every Happy Meal McDonald's ever produced, even the regional releases. It's 240 pages, and it has a little bit of history. And here at the beginning, let me see here. It says 1979, the Circus Wagon Happy Meal was the first national Happy Meal promotion. So I'm looking here. I got to go just a little bit farther ahead to see a picture of it.
Actually, it's in the video. I pulled one of those clips from a commercial with that Circus Wagon meal. It's in that video.
That Circus Wagon is the very first one, but there were other Happy Meals before that, regional Happy Meals and test things where they were testing the idea. So, but my first one you've already touched on. And I'm doing mine in chronological order because it's too hard for me to actually put them in a favorite list.
Okay.
So first on my list, 1982, those Dukes of Hazzard Happy Meals.
Okay.
And that's why I didn't say much when you were talking about it. But those come out in 1982, which was earlier. I wouldn't have thought, being 4 years old, that I would still remember them as vividly as I do. So I was thinking like 83, 84, but they come out in 1982. And you're right, they were the vacuum form containers. And there were 5 different ones. You had the orange General Lee that you mentioned, and you had Roscoe's car. You also had a white Boss Hogg car, Daisy's Jeep, and Uncle Jesse's truck.
Oh, and wow.
I remember having all of those at the time. That was one that I really was head over heels into. And part of the promotion, if you bought the Dukes of Hazzard Happy Meal, you could upgrade your Happy Meal drink to a large drink, and it came in the Dukes of Hazzard plastic cup.
Oh, nice.
They had 6 of those. You had, Bo and Luke each had their separate cup, and then Roscoe, Boss Hogg, Daisy, and Uncle Jesse.
So Cooter got the shaft, huh?
Cooter got the shaft. Yeah.
Wow, I didn't realize they had 5 of those. But in 82, gosh, I was only 6 years old. So that's crazy that I can still remember that.
And the boxes came plain Jane, undecorated, but inside the box
the stickers.
Was the sticker sheet.
Yeah.
For the windshields and to put on for like where the tires would go and the headlights and stuff. And I remember taking these, Dukes of Hazzard was famous for the car chases and crashes. I would take these with that vacuum form and run them into each other, and they would get all crinkled up. And then you open them and push them back out from the inside.
Pop them back in.
Well, you could do that a few times anyway.
Right, yeah.
But
they were still cheap plastic, but
that's the earliest Happy Meal I can remember.
Yeah.
And before you go on to your first pick, the spaceships that you were talking about came out in 1981.
Oh, wow. Okay.
They're here on the opposite page of the Dukes of Hazzard in this book. And there were, I can't tell if there were 4 different ones, a blue one, a light green, a dark green, and a red. That's
crazy that I can remember getting those Happy Meals specifically, 5 and 6 years old.
as an honorable mention on my list in 1981, there was the McDonald Land Express, which were train cars in vacuum form.
Cool.
But at the back in front of them, it had a little tab that you could pop them together and actually hook the different boxes together. So,
Oh, nice.
yeah, there was an engine, a caboose, a boxcar, a simulated flatbed with something on it. I think there were only 4 cars in that one. But
Cool.
no, I lie. That was from 1982 as well. There were 2 colors of engines, 2 colors of cabooses, and 3 different colors of box cars, and different stickers change them into different box cars. So
Fun.
yeah. Well, that's my first pick.
Okay, maybe I'll go in chronological order then with mine, because I did write down the years. So I'm going to go back to the original Hot Wheels, which was the, I think, 83, 84 time frame. And I think they did several releases, and they had, with each release, they changed up the cars a bit. But I remember having several specific cars in my Hot Wheels collection that I got from McDonald's, and those were some of the best commercials too, going back to watch, because they put the track, like, I don't think it came with the orange track, but it looked like the box was set up that you could run orange track through it or something, or jump your car through there.
I know later releases, they did have perforated sides on the boxes that you could punch out to make like a tunnel through the box. So
maybe that was it. Yeah. That was later on. But yeah, back in the day, the sheriff car that had the 701 on the roof, it was a black and white sheriff car. I remember having that. There was the like General Lee knockoff, which is the Dixie Challenger they called. I had that one. The old, like, back in the 50s blue pickup with the yellow motorcycles, plastic motorcycles in the bed. I had that one in my collection. That was a McDonald's car. The long dragster one with the pointy nose, they call it the Tricar X8. That's a specific one I remember pulling out of a Happy Meal.
Red with white fins.
Yes,
or something, right?
yes, had the white fin, and I think the red, like, rubberized nose, so you didn't, like, take out somebody's eye with it. And then the other two, the funny car that you could lift up the whole body, and you had the engine and everything on the inside, like you could lift that up and see. And then there's one called the Baja Breaker, which was an orange, like, van with a black hood. That you could open up. Those are the specific cars, just looking at the advertisements and stuff, that I remember having in my collection, and that they probably came from Happy Meals. So
well, I'm looking here at the original 1983 release, and that funny car is not listed, or is not pictured anyway.
That might have been the next year then. Because I saw 2 different advertisements or lists that had that funny car was like one of the first ones out and then in the list.
And also, it's interesting to note here on these pictures, it shows all of these Hot Wheels individually packaged in Hot Wheels packaging. But it says it was a national distribution. It was optional too. Not McDonald's weren't required to take care of it. Different cars were given out and or sold in different regions, which seems to contradict the next part here. But cars could be purchased for 59 cents after purchasing a Happy Meal. So I guess you had to buy those in addition. Yeah. And it's really interesting. There's a big picture here. 14 cars in all, a different car every day, and it shows them all on display and what day of each week that car would be the Happy Meal toy.
Interesting.
And it says that here in another advertisement. It shows a different car every day. That van you were talking about, the promotion started on a Friday. It was the 3rd one released. It came out on the Sunday of the first week. So it's interesting. This book is fantastic.
It sounds it, man. I'm gonna have to pick up a copy myself. We'll put a link in the show notes.
Well, I had to get
on
this
Amazon or something.
Well, it's not. I had to get it. I got it used through Amazon. And it was the only copy of it I could find then. There may be some others now on there, but
we'll try to do some research.
When is this book from anyway? Let me see. 1995. So this is up through 95. Nothing after that apparently. Well, which
that's all you need.
That's all I need. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Okay. What's your next one?
Well, let me just keep touching. I counted here on this picture. There's 14. I remember, now my brother may have gotten them because I inherited all his Hot Wheels. They all become one big collection, but there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 of the 14 cars I remember having. Wow. So if these were, and it may be that these weren't exclusive to McDonald's, like they may have been in the store and you could have got them both ways. So I'm not sure all of his came. But the next one on my list, we're going to 1986, and much like the Halloween pails that they done, we've got the beach pail Happy Meals, where you got the bucket for the beach with a handle and a lid, and it come with a plastic shovel. Mm-hmm. And I remember this come out in 86. There was an earlier version, but I can actually remember some of the designs on the bucket I had. Helped me track down exactly which set I had. We used to take the yearly trips to the beach, and I remember getting this at the beach and taking it to the beach to play with it. And for years, the reason I can remember the design, for years after that trip, it's what my mom kept her clothespins in the washroom to take out to hang clothes on the wash. Yeah, and when the Halloween pails come along after that, that's what the clothespins went into.
Yeah, I don't remember the beach ones specifically, but I did. That was another one that I found the commercial for on YouTube and put in that tribute video.
Well, they changed it up slightly the following year. It was the same buckets with a different design, and they added a plastic rake. They called them picnic pails that year. So you were either going to get a shovel or a rake to go play in the yard with, I guess. And the beach pails weren't the first ones. In 84, they had some Olympic pails. I don't know what the tie-in was, but it was buckets with celebrating the 84 Olympics.
Buckets of gold medals. I don't know. That is weird. All right. The next one for me, I think was in the 84, 85 era, and that was the pullback racers.
Oh, yes. They came out several times.
Right. And they had the McDonald's land characters. You had the ones that I specifically remember having was the Big Mac with the police car.
Yep, I had that too.
And the Hamburglar, he was in the longer kind of red race car. Mm-hmm. They also had a Ronald in the yellow Jeep and Bertie in the pink like race car. Made by Ertl, but I was a huge fan of like the penny racers back in the day. You remember those?
Yeah. Oh man, yes, sir.
Oh gosh, I loved those. And I don't remember these specifically being penny racers, but I think they were just pull back, and some of the shorter ones I think would still do like a little wheelie as you let them go. But I loved penny racers back in the day, and those were perfect, man.
Yeah. Did you say you had one with Bertie in it? Because I don't think she come along till 87.
No, I didn't have the Bertie one. I had the Big Mac in the police car and the Hamburglar in that red race car.
Yeah, I believe 80. It says Fastback 2 or Fastmax 2 is what they were called. Mm-hmm. So it says Fastmax 2. I was flipping back to find the first series of them and see when they came out, but I'm not seeing them. I'm not seeing them right now. I had seen them earlier today, and I think. Oh, wait a minute. 1984 was the first ones. Big Mac in the white police car, Hamburglar in the red sports car, the Mayor in the pink Sun Cruiser, and Ronald in a yellow Jeep. And then 85, you had Bertie in the pink Sun Cruiser, Hamburglar in the red sports car, re-release, Big Mac in the white car, re-release, and then Ronald was in the same yellow Jeep. So it's like they replaced the Mayor with Bertie, and all the rest of the cars were the same that year. So gotcha.
Yeah, those are great. I remember playing with those a lot.
Well, my mom, it's not something I brought here. She still has the Mayor or the cop. Still has the cop in the white car down at her house.
Cool. Yeah. I wish I kept some of these, but yeah, I mean, Happy Meal toys weren't, unless you're buying Hot Wheels that were actually legit Hot Wheels, A lot of this stuff was just plastic, and you play with it a few times and something happens to it, and that's it. And they get thrown away,
Well, they were
I don't
great.
have much left.
Besides, like you said, the real toys, they were great for the fact that if you were going to get a Happy Meal, but you weren't going to a store, or you weren't going to be bought a toy, like when we were growing up, you didn't get something every time you went to the store. At least this gave you a new quote unquote toy for a couple of days.
Right. So, yep. Yeah. Perfect. All right. What's next?
1986, the first year they released little packs of Constructs with Happy Meals, which longtime fans of the Retro Network, one of the earliest things we put on there was me talking about how Constructs were one of the best toys of the 80s. And I remember having all of these sets. This would have been one that I convinced my mother, since I was already into Constructs, that I wanted to get all these. And there were 4 different little sets where you could build 4 standalone toys, but when you got all 4, you put them together and it made a pretty nice little spaceship.
Cool.
If you managed to get all 4 of them. And it had the glow-in-the-dark space pieces. I think it was the year the space pieces came out in the regular line, too. Yeah, there were 4 different sets. I had them all, and it made a nice little spaceship when you were done.
Cool. I didn't get into Constructs as a kid, and really not Legos too much. I know they did Legos with Happy Meals
several times.
For several years. So that was not really something I got into or ever remember collecting from McDonald's.
Well, like the Hot Wheels, and I think parents were easier to convince to get you a Happy Meal if it had a real toy in it.
Right, yeah.
Like, I'm already into Constructs, and you have to buy sets to get more pieces. Well, here's a way to get me something to eat for dinner and some more Constructs. So my mother was not opposed to that in any way necessarily. So,
all right. Well, next up for me, we're going to jump to 1987 and the Muppet Babies.
Oh, yes.
The one I specifically remember having was Baby Fozzie on the yellow hobby horse with the wheels. I remember that one for some reason specifically, and I think I had Gonzo in that tricycle as well.
Fozzie was the only one I didn't have. I had the other 3.
Really? Interesting. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I love Muppet Babies. That was huge. A huge deal on Saturday mornings for me. So when that hit, it was like, yeah, I got to get these. But I don't even remember having a couple of them. And I was reading, too, they released one in Canada that was Animal. That was the only where you could find that one. Animal in a wagon.
Let me refer to the book here. Fozzie, Gonzo, Kermit, Miss Piggy.
Well, you can take that one for what it's worth, because that was on, I think, the Muppets Wiki. So,
well, and it's possible. I mean, this may just be U.S.
Well, I saw the picture, so I'm pretty sure it happened. But yeah, those were the only 2 that I remember. But they were great. I thought they were good. And the commercials were great too, because it looks like Kermit was on the skateboard and they made like a little ramp or something out of the box that he could skate down. Yep.
You would pop that in and it would kind of lock, and you had a place to launch him from. And I remember getting the Kermit I was on a day trip with my old man when he must have been summertime, or I don't know. Let's see when this says it was released. I'm not saying, it's not really important now. Anyway, but I remember taking Kermit on his little skateboard on the drive back, I guess, and just running him all over the dash and around the door panel and just trying to entertain myself with that Kermit and skateboard that day.
Yeah, those are great. All right, what else you got?
Well, I am going to back to I'm staying in 1987 for the Berenstain Bears toys Happy Meal.
Yep.
And the boxes too. The boxes were really cool on those. But you had Papa Bear with a wheelbarrow and Mama with a laundry basket and brother on a scooter and sister in a wagon. And there again, the Berenstain Bear books were my favorites, and the cartoon had come on, I think, CBS in 85. Hey, go back and listen to an old episode of the podcast and correct me if I'm wrong, folks, because we talked about it. It's 85. But anyway, so that was another easy one that she didn't mind getting me, because it just fit everything I was already doing anyway. And those were unique because they were the molded PVC figures. And they had the fuzzy heads for their bear skins, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, I do remember those. I don't remember. It seems like I had maybe 1 or 2 at most in my little box of action figures or something, but it wasn't really a huge deal. But going back and watching the commercials and everything, and the boxes were great too. Almost like their houses, the tree house, right, and some other buildings or.
Well, they had the school and their house, and another thing, the tree house part you're thinking of is the countertop display that McDonald's had.
Oh, okay.
Because it was the ad for them, and it had the little cellophane windows with each figure in it at different parts in the treehouse. It's a nice concept. nice display piece for that.
Cool. Yeah, those were great.
And I still have, and I think we featured it on a YouTube video where JJ was getting some stuff out of my retro cabinet. She actually pulled out the Papa Bear figure, and we talked about it.
I do remember that.
Still have my Papa Bear.
Cool. So the next one up for me was actually released about, I think they had 3 different releases. And the first one was in 1987. And that is the Changeables.
Mm-hmm.
The transforming McDonald's food items. I was lucky enough to find a couple at RetroCon. I think it was last year that we went. And I was like, oh, this is like an instant purchase for me. Because I remember having some. I remember having the Shake. And I think one of the came in the styrofoam boxes. I don't know if it was they had to have hot cakes maybe in one of them. And then they had like what was their old styrofoam cases, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But the ones that I picked up were the burger and the French fries.
See, they had a Big Mac sandwich, chicken McNuggets, and I'm looking at the picture. That's the one that kind of looks like a styrofoam container.
Mm-hmm.
Egg McMuffin, large French fries, quarter pounder, and milkshake.
So it looks like I got the French fries from the 87 collection. That's what's stamped on the bottom. And then I have the burger. That says 1988. So that must have been the next year. That's just the hamburger. It's not the Big Mac. Or cheeseburger. So I found those 2. I was so excited when I found those. I was like, oh, those are cool. Because I remember having those. Of course, that's the height of Transformers, GoBots. And they were smaller. They were kind of like, the GoBot style. So I remember like using them, interacting them with like the regular Transformers and GoBots as a kid. But I did not remember they had ones that were dinosaurs mixed in. And that was later. That was like that was in the 90s, I think, when I was doing some research. But the ones I remember are the earlier ones that were just the robots that turned from all the food items.
Yeah, I'm looking through 1988 here to see if I don't see any in 88.
Try 89, 87. I think it was 87, 89, and maybe 90.
87 was 89 was the multicolored Halloween pails.
And there went the burger. Oh, these are great, man. I think they've got them.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, 89 would have been.
Okay.
89 had a Lost in Space changeable. And Jeepers Peepers, Tongue Tippers, Who's That? Robo Cakes, Galactica Burger, Fry Force, Crypto Cup, Macro Mac, Turbo Cone, C2 Cheeseburger, Frybot.
That's cool that they named them, man.
Yeah, they all had names like Transformers would.
Yeah.
I mean, it ain't as catchy as Optimus Prime or Starscream, but C2
Crypto
Cheeseburger.
Cup.
Yeah, C2 Cheeseburger is still pretty hot.
Frybot. Yeah.
Oh, I never had any of the changeables myself.
You never did?
I just missed out on those. I've seen them for years online, but I missed that altogether.
Oh, they're so great. I need to take these and, I talked about I like to fidget while I'm on the phone at work. I need to have these on my desk and I can just fidget with them while I'm at work. Cool. Okay. Well, what's next for you? You got one more, right?
Yeah, my last one is 1988, and you've already talked about Hot Wheels, but I picked this set from 88. And the 88 set is the one that had the speed ramp punch out in the box that we were talking about.
Okay.
And there were 12 different cars. It doesn't say anything about them being like a consecutive day release or anything. So I don't know what the release schedule for these were, but they also had multiple colors of the same cars.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like the 57 T-Bird came in turquoise and white. And
cool.
Of course, now I see them both pictured here on the same advertisement too, but there were several of them. There was one, the Fire Eater fire truck, the famous red fire truck from Hot Wheels,
Mm-hmm.
they released an exclusive yellow and blue version of it for the Happy Meals. You could get
Cool.
the red or the yellow blue, and the yellow blue looks like it was really rare because the other cars in this price guide list everything being at $8 to $10, and that one's listed at $250 to $300. So it must have been
Wow.
pretty rare. Well, you think if you're a Hot Wheels collector, the McDonald ones are, I ain't gonna say harder to find, but a lot of them are. I guess that one really is harder to find.
Yeah, because they do different paint schemes with the same body style and everything nowadays too. So that makes sense that they would have done that back in the day too. And if they're only at McDonald's versus a store, then that make it even more rare.
These were actually cars may have been given in different regions. It doesn't say. There was there's 2 of them here, 3 of them with asterisks that say they were only released on the East Coast. So I'm surprised those don't carry heftier price tags, because you just think naturally they'd be a little more limited.
Right.
But that's my list.
Okay.
What's last on yours?
The last one on mine, I don't remember ever collecting as a kid, but collecting Batman memorabilia over the years. I found these on eBay in their original packaging still. It's from 1991, the Batman Returns Happy Meal toys. And these, now it's funny going back and you're watching the commercials and doing some research. Some of these were not in the movie. Catwoman did not have her own little car that wagged a tail,
No, but that would have been awesome.
That would have been great. Penguin did have that kind of huge duck boat thing, but didn't have this one that has the spinning umbrella on the top. The Batmobile looks like the 89 Batmobile or 91. And then they got the
91. I thought
yeah,
they were coming out
92.
92. Yeah,
92. It's 92. That's right. But and then this other one actually says 1991 on the packages. The other one kind of looks like the Bat Missile, but it's weird. It's got like tank tracks in the back, so it's not exact.
I'm seeing that. I've got pictures of them here.
But if you've ever done the research on these, there was like a huge backlash from parents and the whole community that they were tying in Happy Meal toys to that movie, which was very dark toned and violent and all that. So it was one of the, I don't know if it was like the earliest one or if there was some other stuff beyond that. I can think of like Garbage Pail Kids where, parents were up in arms about and stopped some of that content from coming out, like the cartoon series. But yeah, this is the first time I remember hearing or thinking about something associated with a Happy Meal toy that was a huge, backlash moment. And they actually, I'm not sure if I think they got pulled like early, weren't available, like very long or something like that. I'll have to look into that. I don't know if your book has anything about that.
No, it don't go into details quite like that.
But just trying to do some research online, I could probably dig in and find out a little bit more about it. But it seemed that it was put out, there was a huge backlash, and they pulled them, early before either before the movie hit or something like that. Can't remember, but they're cool. I like I like that they're different. They're not necessarily specific for the movie, that they're almost their own thing, Which
they
it
have. It looks like the actual Batmobile looks just like the one in the movie.
Right.
So.
The Batman Press and Go car. That one looks like the one where the Batmobile splits and the middle section kind of is the one that he drives. It kind of goes through that building, I think it was.
Well, a couple of notes on 92 there. Late 91, early 92 is when they quit doing the boxes because it shows the pictures of the bags. And
okay.
Batman Happy Meal came in a bag, but the bag was colored up to look like a comic book page. So that's kind of cool. But 92, listen to this murderer's row of premiums in Happy Meals. Just for all of 92, they done Back to the Future Happy Meals, Barbie, Hot Wheels, Batman, Cabbage Patch Kids, Tonka, Crayola, Michael Jordan Happy Meal, Halloween 92, whatever that is, Potato Head Kids, Real Ghostbusters, Tiny Toon Adventures, Yogi Bear, and Young Astronauts. So
Wow.
they were at their peak of tie-ins in that period, because I looked through the beginning of each year on here has a full list of all the Happy Meals.
Mhm.
And in the early years, in the 80s, they'd have like 4 or 5 promotions and then 8 or 9 just generic McDonald's stuff.
Right.
So that's a pretty good list right there from 92. They
yeah.
were all in on the tie-ins.
Yeah. As far as licensed and
1990, I just flipped to it. Barbies and Hot Wheels together. Berenstain Bear Books, Dink the Little Dinosaur, Halloween 90, Jungle Book, Peanuts, Rescuers Down Under, Super Mario 3, Tailspin, Tom and Jerry. That was a pretty good year too for Happy Meal toys.
And the commercials, like the Super Mario Brothers commercial, was great because it mixed like animation and actual kids, in the commercials. And
Right.
oh yeah, they did some great advertising on television to get kids, ready to buy these things. It's time to get into it, man. Our favorite Nintendo Entertainment System games. I'm trying to remember, you told the story, I think, about getting your Super Nintendo at Christmas time. When did you get your NES?
Oh, man. Buckle up, because this is going to take a second. Now, my cousin Tim had got one. There's an article up on TRN from pre-launch that we populated the site with about how I fell in love with Nintendo. And I tell this story, but my cousin Tim, who was our neighbor, had got one, quickly fell in love with it, and was begging for one, but I went several weeks without one, and then I don't know what was going on. Maybe my dad's business, he had come into a good little smack of money, because we went out to Bristol one night, and he bought a new entertainment center. Back when you used to have to buy all the pieces individually, when you had a CD player, a cassette deck, and all this stuff, and it was all wired into one central thing with the speakers. And he bought that, and I was like, well, that's kind of cool. And then we ended up going to my favorite store, Heels, and lo and behold, just totally out of the blue, this is like on a random Tuesday or Wednesday school night, we bought the Nintendo Entertainment System.
Wow.
So
remember seeing commercials where they changed the slogan to like Hills is where the games are or something.
Mm-hmm.
And the little elf is touting their video game selection. And yeah, that was a huge deal. The first time I remember like encountering an NES was at Hills as well. And there was a line down that aisle where they had a Nintendo Entertainment System set up, and right next to it was the Sega Master System. I might have told this story before on here, but there was a line waiting to play Super Mario Brothers, and nobody over here on the Sega Master System with I think it was the missile defense or something with the zapper gun they had set up. But that was my first interaction, just watching it. And it was an event just to watch somebody, play Super Mario Brothers. Mm-hmm. And I had a similar experience that we'll get to on my list. But I ended up getting the Sega Master System because my neighbor friend Tim up the road had a Nintendo. So I got my Nintendo fix up there. I had the Sega. He would come down and we'd play my Sega games together. So we had that kind of back and forth where we could try a whole bunch of new games, not just Nintendo at the time. But I didn't get mine. I bought one secondhand not until my early days in high school. So maybe like freshman year. So that would have been like 1990. Wow. Somewhere around in there. So it was like, 5 years had passed since it had been out before I got my own.
I want to say I got mine in 86. And I didn't get the cool standard set with Mario and Duck Hunt. Mine come with a book. It didn't come with a game. So
what?
Yeah, it was this big, thick catalog looking book, and it featured about 40 Nintendo games in it. Not really cheat codes and stuff, but there'd be some maps in it for each of the games and things. But
so that was like just teasing you,
yeah,
to go out and buy some games. Come on, you got the system. Here's 40 games. Go out and buy some.
But that's kind of how I pinpoint when I got my system, was because all the originals, had Mario, Duck Hunt, and the Zapper gun. So mine must have been like a second run, but it was okay. I mean, because at the same time that night, we picked up a couple of games, one of which I'm going to talk about on my list. Mm-hmm. But so yeah, it was still a good experience, and I was the only person who had that book that I knew of, and all my friends at school wanted to borrow it. They were just amazed because I know you can remember the days before the internet and everything at your fingertips. You only got to see these screenshots from a lot of these games in something like that. Right. So. But we also had a big traders market at school of swapping and borrowing games. There was a bunch of us kids who would swap games. So even though you didn't have to own a lot of games where I went to school to play a lot of games, because we had probably 12 kids who would share games. And if everybody had 3, that's 36 total cartridges. I'd say at least 25 of them were different. So you had a lot of games to play.
That's cool. Do you remember ever like buying a game on your own, like your first game? Oh, this is my game.
I do, and it's on my list. I'll tell that story
all right.
in a little while.
I remember buying one brand new game by the time, gosh, I was in college, so it was like 96. There's this like local mom and pop store, kind of like Big Lots, I would say. And they had, for some reason, like brand new Nintendo games. And I brought my Nintendo and my Genesis to college, and I bought the Star Wars Nintendo game, brand new in the box. I wish I still had it, but for some reason I sold it on eBay. I guess I needed some money or something. But that was the only game I remember buying brand new, because by the time I was in high school, there was a local trading post that we would go down, and you could swap a game for $1.
Yeah, I think you've told us about that.
Oh gosh, that was so great. And if you had the book, you could swap for a game without a book for free. I mean, it was great. It was just a great little system. And if you like the game, you keep it. And you just go buy another one there for dirt cheap, or you beat it. You're like, okay, let me get something else. And for $1, you can't beat that, man.
Yeah,
going through all the catalogs there. So
I wish we'd have had that where I grew up.
One more question before we get on to our list. Did your parents ever play games with you?
That also will be covered on my list in a little while.
As far as Nintendo goes, that's a big no for me, because by that time, that was just not going to happen. But early on, when I first got my Atari 2600, my dad would sit down with me and we would play this game called Freeway, which is like Frogger. And you were this chicken going up. You just had to go from the bottom to the top. There was no side motion. And then all this traffic. And then whoever made it the most times would win. And there was also one, I think, called Fishing Derby. I had a lot of Activision games. And you'd be this fisherman, and you would move the pole down and try to catch fish and bring them up. And there's this shark at the top that you had to avoid, or he would eat the fish before you got it up to the surface. But that was the only time I remember like my parents getting into video games. Most of the time it was shut that nonsense off, go outside, go do something, which I still tell my kids nowadays. So the circle of life has been completed in that regard, as far as video games. But all right, well, let's get into it, man. What is your number 5 pick on your list for favorite Nintendo games?
It's really hard to put these in order. My top 3 is a concrete order. Everything else on my list could be fluid. So like I was telling you in between segments, this is a topic we can always revisit with 5 more of our favorite games, and we could talk forever. But right. For today, I'm going to put number 5 on my list, Super Mario Brothers 3.
Okay.
I never owned Super Mario Brothers for Nintendo. My cousin Tim got Super Mario Brothers 2, and I played it and didn't like it. Now, I like the original Super Mario Brothers. I just play it at Tim's. But it was kind of hard to really enjoy the first Super Mario Brothers when you're always having to be Luigi, and he's taking 30, 40 minutes at a time to play.
Yeah, and your turn lasts like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Because he's had all the practice.
Yes. So Super Mario Brothers 3 came along, and it had all the powerful promotion from Wizard movie and the Happy Meals promotion and stuff. It was a big deal as a kid when Super Mario Brothers 3 came out. And that was a game I ended up getting and loved it just for the fact that it was my own Mario game. And the gameplay was really good. You know, they introduced a lot of new elements in that game. The hopping around in the boot and the raccoon suit and the frog suit and the warp whistle, and the layout of moving from world to world was different. And it was just exciting. It was my favorite entry into the Mario Brothers world until Super Mario World came out for Super Nintendo. And then I've not played any Mario incarnations beyond Super Mario World, so I can't speak for modern versions. But Super Mario Brothers 3, yep, number 5 on my list today.
Well, my bottom 3 was kind of like you. I could mix and match here. I put Super Mario Brothers 3 at number 3 on my list. It was just mind-blowing. And I had played Super Mario Brothers up the street with my neighborhood friend Tim's house, and just getting the motion of that. And I remember getting to the point where we could not figure out that final level, which is like you got to go here and here and here on the platforms to make it to Bowser at the very end. And it was just like an endless maze. We couldn't figure out the how to get past that. And I don't remember how we found out, probably through like Nintendo Power magazine or something, how to finally beat Super Mario Brothers. But I was deep into that world, you know, early on when the console was first released. Super Mario 2, I probably didn't play until after Super Mario 3. Because I didn't have anybody that had it. I remember, I think it was one of the trading games that I got Mario 2. And I made it through. I went and beat the game. I felt like an accomplishment, too. Like more of an accomplishment than doing number 1 or number 3 for some reason. I don't remember it being any more difficult, or it was just a different game. It's hard to compare Mario 2 to 1 and 3, in my opinion.
Yeah, it just feels different. It feels like they had a game in mind, and then they slapped Mario on it to make it marketable. You know what I mean? It's like they incorporated it into another game they had.
Well, I have watched, there's a great documentary, a short documentary from the Gaming Historian on YouTube on Super Mario Brothers 2. And it tells you that they had some sequel developed that was just, they thought that it was too hard for those Americans over there. So so I think they actually did what you're talking about. They had something else developed and rebranded it into Super Mario Brothers 2, which is, you know, like I said, it's totally different. I always played as Princess Peach because she could float like for a little bit if you held in the button. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I was always her on Mario 2. But Mario 3, the first time I remember interacting with it, it was my rich friend's house. It was a birthday party there. And he got it for his birthday, and we plugged it in, and we were all just enthralled with him not giving up the controller, but him just playing, you know. And like you said, all the different suits you could do. That one where I can't remember what the name of it is, where you're kind of the raccoon, but you can turn into a statue. I always thought that was the coolest one. Mm-hmm. And then the frog suit. Everybody wanted to get the frog suit, and then see how well it went in the water versus that kind of up and down motion you got in, you know, the first. It was so much better to have that frog suit, but it sucked when you're on land. You couldn't really do much with it. So I don't know. It was so cool. And then doing the whole warp whistle thing, getting on the white blocks and holding it in and dropping down and being able to go like behind stuff. Oh my gosh, that was like mind blowing.
It was.
It's like almost like the game was broken, you know. But yeah, it's one of those games that if I'm gonna fire up the Nintendo, it's like one of the ones that I've got to play before I shut it off. You know what I mean? It's so much fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, I put it a little higher on my list at number 3. What's another one for you?
Number 4 on my list, and this was, I don't know, maybe, like I said, I could put so much in here. This is so interchangeable, but I'm going with Excite Bike for today.
Okay.
Because it was the first game I played for Nintendo, and gosh, for a while after it, that felt really interactive because you got to design your own courses if you wanted to. And it's a game my cousin David had, and I would go to his house and play it, and we would set up these custom tracks where it just went on and on and on, and then we'd race them, and all the different jumps you could put into it. My favorite thing about Excite Bike was wrecking other people. When you could come down the track with your back wheel hitting their front wheel and they would go rolling. That was just the greatest thing. And all the different, I said jumps already, but all the different jumps and ramps and mud holes and water hazards and those big, long, extended bridge looking things. You could create so much, and I would sit and play that game for hours on end. And I would play the regular mode until I got bored of, getting up to the higher levels and losing all the time. And then I'd go start making my own tracks, and I could just play it for hours on end. And it's a game that I've played as much or more as just about any other Nintendo game I've ever touched, yet I never owned it. I had so many people who owned it that I would borrow it from. I almost constantly had a copy of it in my possession, but I never actually owned it.
Yeah, I was the same way. I'd never owned it, never even got into the whole design your own track thing. The first time I played the Excite Bike was actually in an arcade.
Oh.
And it was, I couldn't get the jumps down, and it was, obviously the setup is different versus the Nintendo game, but it just was never one that I really connected with, at least not as much as you did. But yeah, I remember it being one that I would pop a quarter in once in a while at the arcade at the mall, and that was about it.
Well, you said you never really connected with it, but you also said you never got into the design your own track thing. I think those two statements go hand in hand. If you would have got into the design your own track thing, you would have connected with it, I'm sure.
Right. Okay, well, that's a good choice. I know that's was a popular one for a long time, so can't deny that being a great choice for the list. Number 4 for me was a game that my friend Tim had. I did not get it until later on when I got my own system. Gosh, so many different fun things to do in the game. It wasn't just a game where you did one thing all the time. Skate or Die. Love Skate or Die. I spent so much time on that half pipe, man. Hours on end trying to do those little flips and moving from side to side, dragging doing the rail across the whole surface there, racking up points. And I felt like I was an expert. Just like I said, I didn't own the game. It was just going up to Tim's house, and he would be even surprised at how much points I could rack up on the half pipe. The fun thing to do was when you had 2 players like me and Tim, and you get on that swimming pool joust where you're going back and forth. You got that huge jousting, like they do on the gladiators, and trying to knock them off the skateboard, as you're going up and down that swimming pool. That was so much fun. And then just that little where you're going through the city and you can jump on cars and weave in and out and just do, crazy stuff. And it's going from the top to the bottom. I don't remember any other game where you had like a top to bottom track almost. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was very unique in that way too. And I don't know. I spent so much time on Skate or Die, and I was a total skateboard poser. I could not ride a skateboard to save my life. So that was my only way I could be cool is to play Skate or Die.
Yeah, that was a game my cousin Jeffrey had that I would borrow from time to time. I never was a huge fan of it, but I played it enough, and I think why I wasn't a huge fan of it, I'd never really got the hang of it. I didn't get an instruction book with it from Jeffrey, and just figuring it out on your own was a little difficult. And then I'd kind of quickly give up and go to a game that I knew I liked and could do well at. So
yeah, and I think I don't know if they called it downhill race or something. You could play two players too, so you're kind of doing all those tricks and stuff at the same time. So there was some good like 2-player action with the game as well, and not just trying to do all those tricks. And I think there was even like a high jump too on the half pipe where you try to go up as high as you can, build your momentum up and try to go up really high. So it was fun. It was almost like the X Games before that even was a thought in somebody's head, Fun game.
Well, speaking of fun 2-player games, and to answer your question earlier about parents playing games with you, my third favorite, my top 3 are rock solid. I mean, there's no debate in the order of these for me. But number 3 on my list is Tetris. Because for whatever reason, my dad was old school. And he didn't even want you to hook the Nintendo up to his television in the living room because, it'll mess up the TV. You play it too much, it'll ruin the screen and all that stuff. And he would happen to come by every now and then to my room or something. I'd be playing Nintendo, and he would look in for a minute or so and then go on. But for whatever reason, Tetris caught his eye, and he actually wanted to try it. And I taught him how to, it's pretty simple controls. Even a parent could understand it. You hit one button to flip the block, and you hit the arrow to move it side to side. It's not a big deal. He got into it. And there was a long stretch, 3 or 4 months, that when he was in town, every night he would be in my room for hours, and we would play to see who could get the highest score. And it's funny that an old Nintendo game like that was probably for most of my young life, that was the most bonding we had ever done. And it was over Tetris. So how could that not be near the top of my list? And it's also a game that I bought with my money, but it wasn't the first game I bought with my money. I'll get to it next. But yeah, Tetris was one of those games that still holds a lot of nostalgic value. It's that memory of Dad playing that game is one of the few memories that launched everything I do online in the retro world, is wanting to tell that story way back when on Retro Junk. So yeah, that game's got a big old nostalgia pull for me. And the fact that the colors were just bright and vibrant, and the Russian music into it, and it would speed up as you got higher in levels, and oh my God, it would cause your heart to race a little bit. And it was a game that I would play that my hands would get sweaty playing it, because it's like, oh my God, I've got 139 lines and it's going so fast, and can I keep it going? And the music's pumping and your hands are sweating, and oh my goodness, it was an exciting game. Very exciting.
That was always my goal. I wanted to start at level 1, and I wanted to make it to 100 levels. If I could make it to 100 levels, it was a good day, And it's a game that I remember, like when we were first married, would break it out, and the wife and I would go back and forth and play it. So that's one of probably her favorite game from Nintendo era. And yeah, I mean, it was a phenomenon, man. I mean, it was just like tournaments seemed to pop up. You go over to a friend's house for a sleepover or a birthday party or something, and do little tournaments so you could get the most lines. And like you said, the music, you could change. What was it? I think it was 3 different tracks.
Yeah.
So you change it to, I can't remember which one it was. It wasn't the one that was set up. That was like the Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy song. I always changed that one to like the second or third choice when doing the music. But Tetris was pretty big in my world. One above that for me, though, would probably be Dr. Mario. And I remember being at a friend's house and playing that for the first time. I was like, oh, this is so much more fun than Tetris. And it's I don't know if it's simpler or not, but it was just where, you've got those little virus guys at different parts of the board. So you're not just doing the same thing over and over again. And those change up. So you could, the boards were kind of different too. And Dr. Mario is one. I even downloaded the mobile game last year when it came out, and just to get that, feeling of when I first played it, because it's great. I love Dr. Mario, but Tetris, solid pick, man, solid pick. So like I said, these first three here for me, I could switch in really any order. My top two are the solid ones. But the next one I'm going to select is one, a favorite of mine and my buddy Wyatt. We would play hours on end. And it's even fun playing against the computer, even though the AI of the time wasn't always necessarily fun. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It was either the AI would just speed up until you couldn't, you just had no chance. Even like, Tetris, that was just the hard part of it was they just got faster, But the game is Spy versus Spy.
Ah.
So great. And, there's different levels. So there's the simpler levels that were just like one floor and had like a section of, 9 rooms that you could go in. But it was, even like I said, even by yourself, the AI person was as dumb as hell. But what you could do is get all the items. The basic premise was you have to get this bag, and you got 4 items, and you got to get through this door with an airplane on it to escape, and you win. Well, I would get all the items, go to that room with the airplane, and pop it in a dresser or one of those little things that you could hide in and booby trap it. And then I would go back and mess with the AI guy until he was completely dead. And then I would get out of there. So, you could get like a dagger. There's a dagger and a knife when you got in the same room, you like fought against each other. But I just love setting the booby traps. You could put like springs in those little TVs and dressers and stuff. You could booby trap the door to drop acid on them. And there was some kind of bomb or whatever you could set in the room that would turn their faces blue, and then he'd just blow up. So, and you got like a time limit. Every time you died, you'd knock like 30 seconds or a minute off your time. So I would just kill the guy, keep killing until his time was gone. And then you grab your stuff and you exit. But we had so many good battles on that game. And once you start adding like 2 levels to the game, was more fun, because then you have to really explore the whole area to get all of the elements, and then you'd have those showdowns when you'd find each other. But gosh, love Spy versus Spy. The music was a little bit annoying because it's the same song over and over again. But I don't know, we enjoyed that so much together.
I never played it, but that was one of my favorite parts of Mad Magazine all through the years, was Spy versus Spy. So
they did just recently I've seen Hot Wheels has some Mad Magazine themed cars, and I've been hunting a Spy versus Spy one just so I could, send it to him for Christmas or something. But man, that was like our go-to game when we were together. Loved it.
Well, number 2 on my list was one I played by myself, and I never let anybody borrow it because it was the first game I bought with my own money, like your question earlier. But I saved up allowance for a while, and I went to the store not to get this game. I went to get a game, any game, whatever game they had. But the store we ended up at that day was Rose's, and they didn't have a very good selection. But just looking at the box art, I can't remember what else was there to choose that day, but I ended up buying Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest. And in the Castlevania trilogy for original Nintendo, this is considered the weakest entry. But it blew my mind because it was the first role-playing game I had played, what I would call an RPG, because you're Simon Belmont and you're going to rid the land of the curse of Dracula again. But you got to go through these towns, and you got to talk to the townsfolk and get clues, and you go back and forth. It's a side-scrolling game, but you'll go to the right, and you'll play for an hour and a half only to find out that you have to go all the way back the way you came and go to the left past the original start screen. And you'll go that way for like an hour and a half and play, just to find out you have to go all the way back to where you started and everywhere you had went the first time, because now the screen is unlocked even farther. And you're having to collect all these items, to get past different parts of the game. And it was just very aggravating. And there was no like real save feature as far as like, okay, I've played for 4 hours. I'm going to save it and pick up on it again tomorrow. Yeah, no, you got to beat this thing. But I got to the point where I would start making notes. Okay, here's what I got to do here to get past this. And you got to get past the lake, you got to put a red crystal in your hand and kneel down for 10 seconds. And then a whirlwind will come take you past it. It was all this crazy shit that you were never going to figure out on your own. I think that one with the red crystal and the tornado and just hitting down on the control pad for 10 seconds in place. How's a kid going to figure that out? I found that out in some Nintendo Secrets book or whatever. And so I could finally get on past it. But I beat the game and I got to be where I used to love to play it straight through and see how fast I could do it. And it would still take hours, but I can remember several Saturday afternoons where after American Gladiators or whatever went off or whatever I happened to be watching WWF Superstars at the time, you get a drink and a snack and be like, I'll see y'all later. I'm going to go beat a video game. And I would just hammer down on that thing until I was past it. And it has so much replayability to me anyway. When we first got a Nintendo Wii for the kids years ago, I bought and downloaded that game instantly so I could play it again. And every time I pull out the emulator and play on the computer, I always play some Simon's Quest, even if it's only for 10 minutes, just to get that, there we go. Now let's go on and play something else feeling out of the way.
I've never played it. I was not connected at all with the Castlevania. And there's only 2 Nintendo games that I can remember that scared me. Like, where the lead character was like some, Castlevania was one. I remember my friend Tim had the first one. And when he got to Dracula, I was like freaking out. I'm like, he's on the screen, look out. The other one was Friday the 13th, when you get to Jason and just would slaughter you. And I don't know, it kind of scared me as a kid, but maybe that had some impact on me not trying to get or not playing, some of the sequels. How many did it have? 3 sequels or 3 games? Well, Castlevania?
You had Castlevania, then you had 2 and 3, and then they had Super Castlevania when Super Nintendo launched, which is an awesome game, by the way. And Castlevania 3, Dracula's Curse for Nintendo is an awesome game.
Yeah.
I guess for all the factors I mentioned about me buying it, I put Castlevania 2 ahead of it, but Castlevania 3 probably has the better gameplay. And it's like Super Mario Brothers 2, where you can be different characters.
Oh, fun.
In Castlevania 3, you've got like 3 different choices. One is a pirate, one is a whatever, and you can change throughout the course of the game depending on what kind of abilities you need. So you can like swap in he can transform in midstream there. And it's really fun. It's a lot of levels. They bring back a lot of classic monsters for that, like Cyclops is a level boss and stuff. And it's hard to say levels because the game really don't feel like it has levels. It feels like it's almost a free range game, but you just, at certain points you encounter a real big bad and you're like, oh, son of a gun. Where'd he come from?
Yeah. It sounds a lot like the Turtles, the original Turtles game, where you can change them out and you get areas where you can go into different buildings and you get in the van and you go across the river and go to this and that. And that's one franchise I really need to connect with or at least start playing and see what it's like, because there's a lot of games. I mean, I don't know how many Nintendo games are in the overall library, but there's a lot I haven't played just because I was so hooked on certain ones that I'd always go back to.
Well, that's the beauty these days. Like I said, you can download an emulator and you can get ROMs for whatever you want and try these games. It's beautiful.
Yeah. You've got to have the right controller, though. I mean, you've got to have, like you were saying earlier in the in our in-between segment there about having a Nintendo controller that's got a USB on the end so you can plug into a computer.
Which I have, and it is beautiful.
Because my number 2 pick, I actually just attempted to play on my son's Switch. And no, let me tell you, I need a Nintendo controller to play the game because it just does not work that way. My number 2 pick, I don't know. Out of all of them and that I've played over the years, it's probably the most, even more than my number 1. But I just loved the movements and the abilities the characters have. Double Dragon 2, The Revenge, is my number 2. And obviously, Double Dragon was great in its own right. Even the arcade game, I remember pumping quarter after quarter into that. When Double Dragon 2 hit on the Nintendo, it just was, to me, miles ahead even of the original Double Dragon, because the controls, it changed. So, like, whatever way you were facing on the screen, it wasn't always A as your punch and B as your kick, whatever. Once he flipped, then your controls flipped too. So if you're going right and your punch was A, if you go left, your punch is B. Wow. It's the setup was so great. And the combination of moves that you can do, your jump was pressing both buttons, and if you jumped and then hit the side that you're jumping to, like the A button again, you do this hurricane kick that was you just could smash people with it. And then it had this other unique thing where once you jump and you come down, you're on a knee, and if you're immediately hitting your punch button there, he's doing this huge uppercut punch. Or you get on the knee and you hit both buttons and he does this knee that would fly the character across the screen. Just so many different weapons in your arsenal with the thing. And plus you could still do the headlock and punch them, throw them, and like the original Double Dragon. But it was so great. I tried to play it on the Switch. Couldn't do it. The buttons were too far apart. Couldn't get my jumping together. And there's certain stages in Double Dragon where you've got these conveyor belts. There's this other place where it's basically more skill than trying to punch your way to get to the end of the stage. You're trying to jump on these conveyor belts and jump from platform to platform and not die. And so there's just more than just kind of punching your way through. But oh gosh, it's like, it was just so much fun. And you could, with 2 players was really great. And it got to the point where I had to, like, even on the master level, I can't remember what the hardest level is. It seems even harder when you've got 2 people, because there's just more people coming at you than you would with 1. But I could still beat it on the hard level by myself, and I just love it. It's probably, other than my number 1 here, it's like 1B. It was so great. Did you get into the Double Dragon series at all?
I remember borrowing the original Double Dragon and playing it and liking it, but I don't remember. I may have played Double Dragon 2, but I just don't have the memory of what you're saying about the controls swapping. So maybe I didn't play it, because that's something I would probably remember.
One stage, you're in a helicopter, and you're my goal was always, there's a door that would open just at random, and it would kind of suck you towards the door, like you're going to fly out of the helicopter. And it was always my goal to, like, try to get somebody in a headlock, and then that door would open and you'd throw them towards the door so they'd fall out. But it just had crazy.
Accomplish that?
Oh yeah. But there's just so many. The stages were great, and it was kind of dumb. Like, you couldn't go in the water. I mean, you lose a life if you go in water. And there's little quirky things about the game, but the characters that would come at you some of them were like double your size, and you had these guys that would throw grenades. They would also throw these like sticks of dynamite that would just engulf everything around it after, like a little countdown period. So like the weapons were fun too that you could use during the game. And I just love it so much. And one of my favorite stages, towards the end, you actually face yourself. It's like a mirror image of you, and it's pretty hard. I mean, the end guy is really hard because he does this little spinning thing with his arms that's like Cyclone from Masters of the Universe. But you kind of face yourself, and of course you're going after your girl. You got to rescue the girl. So just a classic story and game. I love Double Dragon 2.
Well, I've got to guess at what your number 1 is, but I'll wait until you tell me, and I'll tell you if I was right or not. But my number 1 was the first game I got for the Nintendo. It was the second game I ever played for Nintendo, and that was Pro Wrestling. And I talk about this in that article, how I fell in love with Nintendo. Tim had got that Nintendo, and I went over and we played Super Mario Brothers. My uncle said, "Oh, you need to come play it." And like we said, I'm being Luigi. Tim's playing for 10, 20, 30 minutes, and I get a turn, and I die in 30 seconds. And he's like, want me to come back the next day? And I'm like, it was all right. I just had to do a lot of watching. It wasn't fun. He's like, well, I got pro wrestling. Like, wait, what? Because me and him were both huge into wrestling at the time. So I go over there, and he's got pro wrestling, and we play at the same time. We played that game for had to be 12 to 16 hours straight that day. And then every day was the same after that. It was limited. I mean, the move sets were cool. All the different wrestlers on the game had different move sets. They all had some basic ones that were alike, but they all had their own special moves, and you could fight outside the ring. And it was, for that era, it was a great rendition of pro wrestling. The only thing I knock it for is the lack of characters. I think there were 7 wrestlers that you could be, including Starman and Fighter Hayabusa. What was the Amazon Killer or Ken Karn, King Slender, and Giant Panther. I was a King Slender guy because he looked the most like Ric Flair. So I was always, but I didn't like his backbreaker as a finisher. So I would do the backbreaker finisher, but then I'd pick him up and give him a pile driver as my personal finisher of choice instead of the backbreaker.
Yeah.
But we would play that game. We would play all these different matchups, and we would just wear that game out. And then when I got my Nintendo, that was the first game I looked for at Hills that night and found it and got it. And I can remember the feeling of satisfaction and joy when we got the Nintendo hooked up and we put that in and it flashed up onto the screen with that bell going ding. I was like, oh my goodness, here we go.
Yeah, I remember my rich friend had pro wrestling, had WrestleMania. I think we played WrestleMania more for Nintendo. And on my Sega, I had a pro wrestling game that was mainly tag teams, which was still fun because you still had your different finishers and stuff. But yeah, I love wrestling games too. They were really fun. Didn't make my list, but or even really in my honorable mentions, just because I didn't play it likely as often as you did.
Well, most of my pick there is nostalgia. Is the first game I fell in love with, is the first game I owned. It was in my wheelhouse. Yeah. I mean, it's not on my favorite list because it was a great game. It's on my favorite list because of the nostalgia and the way I feel about it. So.
Mm-hmm. All right. You probably know what my number 1 is.
You want me to try to guess it?
Go for it.
Contra.
Yep.
There we go.
I did give you a hint a while back about those Contra figures, the pop figures coming, and the ones we mentioned when we did our, what's in our collection, those Contra figures I bought from NECA.
Not to mention, I read Rediscover the 80s for years before we started doing the Retro Network.
Right. I've written about Contra a couple times, and if there was an Olympic sport that was video games, and Contra in particular, I would definitely want to enter that. But I remember the first time I ever played it, it was Little League, so probably 88 or 89. Went over to my teammate's house after like practice or something, and my neighborhood friend Tim, his grandparents actually lived like across the street from our teammate's house, and Tim and I played on the same Little League team. Anyway, the 3 of us were over, and I remember watching that, and then he knew the code. He knew the Konami code. I was like, what? There's like a secret code? It was like the first game I remember being like a code that you could do at the beginning of the game or something to,
And let me pipe in here. I remember when that code came to our school, the word spread like wildfire. And you're like, no, that's a joke. This has got to be a hoax, right? Because we're all at school. You can't go test it. Not till you get home. And it's a topic of conversation all day. I mean, it's just spreading like crazy. People are like, no way. No, Billy just made that up. Billy's a liar. It's like, I don't know. I'm writing it down just in case. It was a news event at our school that day when somebody brought the code in.
Yeah. It was probably the only time you didn't need a Nintendo Power or something, because just the word of mouth around the Konami code, It was, like you said, it like spread like wildfire. So when we went over and we started playing, and, you know, we would take turns actually on the second player, me and Tim with our friend Mike's there. He was always the first player, but it was just so much fun. But it was difficult, man. It's a hard game if you don't have those 30 lives at the beginning. And just so you got all the traditional kind of platform gaming, you know, moving to the right. And it was just fun, you know, the different guns you can get. Obviously, we always try to get the spread. And when you lose the spread, you're like, oh, I'm screwed.
I hated the spread gun.
Really? Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. I was a machine gun man.
Well, that was the rapid fire, you know, you could just hold down and, I mean, you could do some killing like that. But it was all about the spread for us. So when you'd lose that, it was like, wow. But then, you know, the in-between stages where you're shooting straight ahead and you're trying to get through those, I think there's two stages where you're trying to shoot those targets and advance forward. Those were even fun too. That was unlike anything else that I've ever played at that time, you know, on a video game, moving straight forward. So that was unique that you had like little breaks in between levels. And then it got to the point now where I don't even want to enter the code. I want to try to beat it with those 3 lives you get at the beginning. And I'm able to do it, but sometimes it's hard. Sometimes I'll have to, you know, take a couple tries to get through the game. But it's just one of those games where you got everything. I can tell you where every gun is, where every little guy's going to pop up, and it's mostly memorized at this point because I've played it so much. But Contra, man, it was just fun. It's just a run and gun, you know, there's no thinking. It's just shoot. Just keep shooting. And, you know, those kind of mindless games were probably more where I enjoyed than some of the other ones. But Contra is my number one.
One of the big argument starters, Tim and I used to play that too, is if one of us would run out of 30 lives,
would you? Yeah.
You could steal some from the other one.
No. Just wait. I'm down to 10, you know. All right, now go. Or you get to a point where you need help, you know? Yeah, don't do it now, dude, because there's like people everywhere and you're just going to waste it. Stop wasting my lives.
Yeah.
So you got to get to the point where there's you're in a kind of in between stage or a safe place where you could do it, because sometimes he'd take a life and then you're on this little skinny platform somewhere and you're just screwed. You're just wasting them. Don't take my lives.
Yeah, that was the cool part. You could just steal them. And,
yeah.
You know, on that first jungle, or not the first jungle, but the first level after the first straight ahead thing where you're going up the whole time. Right. If you're playing 2-player and somebody got a little far down the screen, if they touched the bottom of the screen, they died. That was stupid for one thing.
Right.
But I guess the screen had to keep moving. But if you would steal a life there, you would spawn onto the screen usually right just before you got caught by the bottom and instantly die again.
Right.
And so
you had to be careful. Yeah.
We would be mad at each other. You know, we're just like getting destroyed and we're losing all these lives. That was always fun. I'd get pissed at him and I'd start stealing lives and coming in and instantly dying on that screen. He's like, stop it. It's like, you're not going to win it anyway.
Yeah.
But we would try to work out all this stuff when you'd get to the final bosses. He's like, I'm going to work on killing it. You work on keeping all the stuff it's shooting from killing me.
Yeah.
You know? I'm like, screw you. I'm going to kill it. You do it.
Yeah. You keep the scorpions away and let me get the heart. You know, I want to kill it. Yeah. It was always at that point, all the rules were out. Once you got to the final stage and you're at the heart, all of us wanted to kill it, you know?
Yeah.
I want to be the one that gives it that final blow. So there's no strategy at that point. Just start shooting at the heart. Yeah. Gosh, love the game. All right.
It was awesome.
thinking of a way to kind of start this little conversation out. What was your trick or treat experience like as a kid?
Where I actually lived, it was kind of desolate, of course. But my grandmother lived in town, and she lived on this street. It was not a one-way street or a dead end or a cul-de-sac street, but it had one long straight stretch that she lived on. So we would go, and she kind of lived in the middle of it. We would go there and park, and Mom would sit on her porch with Granny and give out candy, and I could run up and down both sides of the street and be in eye view for, a quarter mile in each direction. Mm-hmm. And the street was filled with older retired folks who just loved the kids and loved Halloween and showed it through the treats that they provided for people. So I had a great Halloween experience as a kid. We got top-notch candy and other treats. As we're going to talk about, not all the best treats were candy, and I'm going to go over a few of. But it was really fun, and a lot of kids in town that you went to school with came to the same street, and it was just like a party in the street. There was very little traffic. Kids, you could roam around in the street and talk and play and run and go trick-or-treating and still be within eyesight in a safe environment. So I had a great Halloween trick-or-treating experience growing up.
Yeah, that's cool. I thought maybe living out in the country a little bit, you'd have to find another place like that to do your trick-or-treating without having to walk a mile to your next neighbor or whatever.
Yeah, well, there were plenty of cows around us, but they didn't give out candy. So
yeah, that's true.
Trick-or-treat.
A little refreshment as you're traipsing through the farm lands there. That's fun. I lived on a cul-de-sac growing up, and it was rural kind of area. So we had a main drag that went into town, and then you had several streets off of there that were just dead end streets. And what we would do is normally hit our street, and we were allowed at some point with me and some of the neighborhood friends to go down that main drag and then up the next dead end street to hit all those houses as well. And I don't know, there might have been maybe 24 on each street, something like that. So by the time we were done, we had a pretty good size of candy just in 2 streets. And like you said, it seemed like back then everybody participated. Mm-hmm. There was like maybe 1 or 2 houses that would have their lights off, or maybe they were out of town or whatever. But like 90% of the houses would participate, which is not what's the case nowadays. And it's a different time, and it's a safety thing, and people don't feel comfortable with people coming to their door like it's some big conspiracy, like the razor blades in the apple back in the day. But anyway,
well, my kids, they have had the great setup here in the recent years with their Halloweening. There's a subdivision here that has all these crisscrossing streets, and like everybody in that subdivision gives out candy. But not only that, there's a couple of high points. There's one family that has a rather large house there that they turn the whole bottom floor of their house into a haunted house for the trick-or-treaters to go through, take your kids through. There is another house there that sets up this, they bring in all these bales of straw and build like this straw maze haunted house in their backyard that kids can go through. And then in the cul-de-sac, the family that lives there has a bonfire where you can go toast marshmallows and stuff. So in addition to seeing all your friends and doing your trick-or-treating, you got 2 different haunted house attractions and a bonfire, and it's all free, a big, family community environment. So they've had it really lucky. My kids have.
Yeah, I would say maybe 25% of houses in our whole neighborhood participate. So we usually go to like a fall festival nearby at a church or someplace where they're, giving out a bunch of candy, and have like the trunk or treat where you set up your trunk and play little games and stuff to win candy. Mm-hmm. We do stuff like that, and I will drive them around the neighborhood a little bit to get that experience of going up to somebody's door you don't know and asking for candy.
Well, you're still in the midst of it with your youngest one, but last year was our last year of going out trick-or-treating. Both of my kids are too old now, but my youngest still wants to go. And I'm like, no, you're too old for that crap. Now you need to be going out and egging houses and stuff. You're too old for the trick-or-treating. You just need to focus on the tricks.
That's right.
I'm going to take her out this year and show her how, and then I'm going to turn her loose next year.
Yeah. Make her go corning. I'll send you some shuck corn.
Well, I'm sure where I'm at, I could find some shuck corn. That's just something we had never engaged in around here.
We're gonna have to go into some of that at some point, but
We need to get together at one of our two neighborhoods and just go do that at some point. We'll go pull all your old pranks.
That would be great.
We'll make that a TRN retreat next fall. We'll all get together and go, soak people's windows and stuff. Team building.
Buy some plastic cutlery and fork their yards, and yeah, that would be great.
Then we all get arrested, and we're like, Eric, don't you talk. You're going to be out of this thing. One for all for one.
Oh, gosh. All right. Well, just part of our conversation, I was going through my normal feed this week and found that Mental Floss posted an article on all of the popular Halloween candy by state. I thought this would be fun to go through and see what is most popular in our state. And the funny thing for me is, of course, growing up in Pennsylvania, Hershey's is going to be one of the top ones in Pennsylvania, which it is. But in Alabama, it also is as well. So I don't know if my consumption of Hershey's chocolate bars has something to do with that, or the variety packs was what I loved as a kid. Everybody went for the crackle first, it seemed like.
Yeah.
But those ones I loved as a kid. And I'm not huge into chocolate, even though I grew up close to Hershey. I thought that was funny that both of those states, the top is Hershey. What is it there in Virginia? I'm trying to see what that is.
It's hot tamales.
Hot tamales. Okay.
I wasn't aware that our migrant population had grown so much in recent years to cause that to happen, but we're not the only state. It says that hot tamales is the favorite in 4 different states.
Yeah, well, it looks like, is that Arizona?
Well, see,
Arizona.
I wasn't too far off in my thinking, but
That's true. That's true. New York. I see it in New York. And what is that? Illinois, I think, as well? Or Indiana?
It's one of them.
Yeah. Hot tamales. Interesting.
That's what I thought. I mean, I wouldn't have. I could have guessed my top 10 and wouldn't have had hot tamales. So.
Yeah. Well, that was a little bit of interesting statistical analysis there. Thanks to, I think it was actually through candystore.com.
Oh, well, I'm not done. I got a few more highlights from this thing.
Oh, okay. Go for it, man.
Candy corn rated the #1 worst candy.
Yeah.
Which crazy because it's the most ordered candy in 5 different states. But, that's not something you really give out for Halloween. That's something you buy and put on your own countertop medium because it's hard to give that stuff away as far as it not being individually wrapped. And my favorite stat from the whole thing is Iowa's favorite is the Indian corn version of candy corn.
That's right.
Which I prefer, the Indian
I do
corn
too.
version. So I just thought that was neat that 5 different states had candy corns and Iowa's the only one with the Indian corn version of candy corn.
We were at Five Below yesterday, and they have like unicorn horns. It's candy corn basically that's like rainbow colored.
I've seen those.
I haven't.
We found.
I've tried it yet.
I don't remember the brand name. It's a cheap candy. You get the little round, clear plastic bowls full of candy corn or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
We found last week caramel apple candy corn, and it's really good. Really good.
That's good. I don't mind candy corn and the candy pumpkins too.
Mm-hmm.
I'd eat those as a kid. So, all right, that was interesting. You want to get into your list here? You want to talk about our favorites first and save the worst for last?
Yeah, how you want to do this? You want to do a countdown, or you just want to talk about this stuff?
We just go back and forth. It doesn't have to be necessarily a 1 through 5 ultimate list.
All right. Well, the first one I'm going to throw out, and it took one of 2 people to give this out at Halloween. Either somebody who is really cool as an adult, or somebody who is really cheap as an adult. And that's any kind of plastic toys, like the witch's fingernails or the vampire teeth and stuff like that. But that street I used to trick or treat on, there was a couple people who would just throw in some of that stuff in your trick or treat bag, which on a night that you're getting 90 to 95% candy, it was cool to get something a little bit different because you're going home, you're eating the candy and you're having a good time and you're bouncing off the walls. Well, getting those little plastic toys gave you something to do while you were eating that candy. So I always liked getting those in the trick or treat bags.
Yeah, they weren't bad. I remember getting some spider rings as a kid.
Oh yeah, spider rings were everywhere.
Yeah, it was different. Well, I would prefer candy, but
Well, I didn't say I wouldn't prefer candy, but like I said, you got a bag full of candy. Having something just a little different sometimes was okay.
okay. Well, I'm good with it.
I mean, if you don't like my picks, we can stop now. We'll just go on to something else.
I'm not trying to criticize your pick. Your little plastic vampire teeth. Yeah.
Yeah.
They didn't come with the fake blood, though, back then. It was just the plastic teeth,
Yeah,
Nowadays, you can get it with the fake blood and do it upright.
Back in my own day, you had to make your own blood.
Right. Okay, I'm going to throw one out there. I'm interested to see what you think about this, because this is just seemingly a Halloween exclusive. Okay, I don't see these anywhere else during the year, and I've always loved it. I'm a big popcorn fan, so I love getting popcorn balls because and I like the kettle corn too because they were sweet, and it might be a little interesting trying to eat them, but I don't know. I like popcorn balls.
You know, I never remember seeing or getting popcorn balls when I was trick-or-treating. The first time, and maybe it was just me, I just missed them, but the first time I saw them was when I actually worked at a grocery store. Like in 94, we got a display of them in. I'm like, what the heck is this? But yeah, that was a good idea, held together, I guess, by some light corn syrup or something. Mm-hmm. It just a ball of popcorn. So cheap to produce and a great novelty and pretty good if you like popcorn. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I like it. All right, what's another one?
All right, well, I'm staying away from toys for just a sec. I'm going to hit you with two of them. I'm going to give you a candy as well. But there was this older gentleman who was big into collecting baseball cards on that street where I trick-or-treated. And you went to his house and rang his doorbell and said trick-or-treat. You got a pack of that year's Topps baseball cards. I know.
Oh, really?
So, yeah. So going along with like the plastic toys, you got all this candy. And then here's a pack of baseball cards. And at that time, baseball cards was a much bigger deal than they are now,
right.
More collect them and stuff. So that was awesome. And I remember going back to my granny's porch and sitting down with other friends from school and ripping those packs open and starting trading right then. So I like that. But, well, actually, I'm not going to say candy, something food item, were people who would give away drinks, as in Capri Sun pouches or bottles of Squeeze-Its, or some folks even gave away whole cans of soda. And like I said, I trick-or-treated on a street that had really cool stuff because these people just had money and they loved Halloween. But getting, like, you got the spider rings and you got the baseball cards and you got all your candy, and then here's a Capri Sun Pacific cooler to wash everything down with. That was just great, getting drinks in the bag.
Now, I've got a specific story about getting a drink, which kind of ruined Halloween for me, ruined my trick-or-treating pretty much for good.
Uh-oh.
And I got and this was on my least favorite list. I got a little hug, the little juice that was in the barrels with the foil lid, back in the day. Mm-hmm. I love little hugs. Now, don't get me wrong. This is not a knock on the drink itself, but giving it out at Halloween, this is what happened to me. So it was like one of the houses we hit last on our way back home. So I've got this bag full of candy, and they throw in the little hug. Well, when they threw it in, a lollipop stick went right through the foil lid. And soaked my candy. Oh. Soaked it. I remember going back. Well, I remember walking up the street, and from the street lights, my friend looked back and said, "Hey, dude, you're leaving a trail." I was like, "What?" And he looked, and it's dripping through my bag. I get back home, and Dad put down a towel, and we just laid it all out. We tried to, anything that was wrapped candy was pretty much okay, but some of the other stuff just got ruined, and that just did it for me, man. Little hug, a bath of little hug juice on all of my Halloween candy. That was one of the last times I went trick-or-treating. It was all tricks from that point on, and damned if you didn't. I would go back to that house, and that was the first one we egged.
But there's two ways to look at that, though. The glass is always half full. Was it the little hug's fault?
It was freaking empty that night, dude.
Was it the little hug's fault and that person who gave it to you, or was the real culprit the person who gave you that sucker?
Yeah. Yeah.
If they hadn't given you that sucker, none of this would have happened.
You don't know that.
Well, you don't know that it would.
Anyway, that's what I just associate with my getting out of trick-or-treating. That phase was that year.
Turn out the lights. The party's over, folks.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, one of my favorite candies to get, and you can't get away with it these days. Well, actually you can, because I bought some yesterday, but in a different form. I used to love getting candy cigarettes. I've always loved that chalky taste of candy cigarettes. And before we knew what went on in prison, we kind of mimicked prison, because my friends at school, those things were like currency, but it was candy cigarettes and not real cigarettes. You could get all kinds of stuff for a handful of candy cigarettes back in my day. But now I just seen at Dollar Tree yesterday, they call them candy sticks now.
Yeah.
I bought a bag of, which I'm throwing some in Jeff's nostalgia pack, because I found some retro ones that feature Tom and Jerry and the Flintstones and the Jetsons and stuff on the box.
Oh, nice.
Candy sticks. So, yeah, now they're called candy sticks, but I actually found some Lucky Strike candy cigarettes here a couple months ago, newly produced. I mean, these weren't old collectibles or anything. And I've got some of those in the Retro Museum now. And I ate I don't know, I bought a carton of them when I bought
a carton of candy cigarettes.
I think I've ate 10 packs of them and kept 2 for posterity.
I've seen them at Big Lots, and they had like the gum cigars.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen those, and then would you remember the candy cigarettes that was the gum? You could puff, and you had that one little puff you could do of
which
whatever
was just,
that stuff was.
It was just the bubblegum dust from them producing it, but right. It seemed like the paper was always nearly impossible to get off of that bubblegum cigarette, though.
Yeah,
you was always having to chew little bits of paper.
That's right. Yeah, because you walk around with the thing in your mouth, and it just gets so wet, and then it starts getting sticky from the gum, and you're like,
Yeah.
Carton of candy cigarettes. That's great.
That would make an excellent Christmas present too, if anybody's listening and need, ideas. I prefer the 100s.
Well, you remember, like back in the day, they would put like a red dot on the end too of this. I don't think they do that anymore.
Well, in the Lucky Strikes that I bought, they did. It's not
really?
Probably not like that on the candy sticks, as they call them, but these are actually marketed and sold as candy cigarettes, which is weird because I thought that was illegal, and maybe these are, somebody flying under the radar, I guess. But yeah, they had the little pink red specks on the end of it.
Cool. All right, my favorite, all-time favorite, still my favorite, are Nerds. I love Nerds. Even the little boxes where you only get one flavor, but you were really lucky if you got like the full pack of Nerds back in the day where you had the 2 sides that opened up, I've always loved Nerds, and those are the first things I go for in my kids' candy when they're in bed at night. I'm going for a box of Nerds.
Well, going back to that article we talked about, Nerds was listed as the 6th most popular candy.
Mm-hmm.
But it did not make the top pick in any single state. When I wrote this piece for Retro Ramblings last week on my favorite Halloween treats, I put Nerds on the list. It seems like maybe Nerds were out before I become aware of them. I don't know, but it seemed like there in the mid-'80s, Nerds became a really big deal in the candy world. And all my friends at school had Nerds, the dual-sided boxes like you're talking about. And I remember before I finished trick-or-treating, they had already came out with the little mini boxes, single flavor, like you're talking about. Mm-hmm. And I was the same way back then, man. Give me the Nerds. Those things were great. Because part of it was just the cachet that came with it the next day at school. It's like, I got 9 boxes of Nerds last night. What'd you guys get?
Right. They had some great combo flavors too, on either side when you got the Nerds. Yeah, they blew up. They had the Nerd cereal. They had the little Nerds characters, I think, that came with the candy inside too. And
I used to get those in my stocking at Christmas. Yeah, that little plastic nerd that was just full of Nerds.
Yep, that was a good one.
As time went on, they started producing Halloween flavors, like the Christmas. You get like I don't remember what the flavors were, or maybe it was just the theme color packaging. Maybe it was cherry on one side and green apple on the other, but it was red and green, and parents would buy them, put them in stockings. Yeah, Nerds is a classic candy though. But opposite from candy, I've got another non-candy item that I used to love to get, and that was any kind of gift certificate. Like these days, it's really popular for kids to get the little book of the free Frosty coupons.
Mm-hmm.
And remember what I say, folks, there's only one flavor of Frosty. It's a chocolate. But back in our day, the more popular item was the McDonald's gift certificates. And usually it was for the free small French fries, but there were some years that I got ones for a free small cone. And the only downside to getting that in the trick-or-treat bag was you couldn't do anything with it right away, or at least we couldn't, because our closest McDonald's was 25 minutes away. But you knew the next time you were around there, it was like having money in the bank. You know, I've got this in my hip pocket. Mom's going to take me by. I'm going to get my free ice cream cone. This is going to be awesome. A lot of people may have lived near a McDonald's and go use it the next day, or maybe on their way home from trick-or-treating. But yeah, seeing that in there is almost like when your grandparents would give you a savings bond or something for Christmas. You're like, what am I going to do with this? But you knew eventually it was going to pay off.
I'm going to buy something 20 years from now. Yeah, this is great. Now, bouncing off that, there is an older lady a street over from us, and we had her house pegged every year because as soon as we found out she was giving away this, we were like, we got to make sure we hit this house. She would give out little baggies of money, like pennies.
What?
Yes. Like pennies and nickels and dimes. Yeah. Like her spare change, like she just dumped in like a plastic baggie, tied it off, and threw it in your sack. We're like, wow. Okay. Either like Halloween surprised her that year and she was like, oh, shoot, it's Halloween again. I don't have any candy. So she just goes to the junk drawer and finds whatever she can, digging through the couch. But yeah, we got like bags of pennies. So this is like, back in the day where we would go down to the candy store and a penny was equal to a piece of candy. So we were like adding more candy to our haul for the night just by getting some change. So it was great, man.
Well, speaking of bags, I got one more item on my list here, and that was the people who would take the time and effort and money to put together the little treat bags. And I put a picture of the classic ones I always think of up on Retro Ramblings, just a little white paper bag with the Halloween drawing on it. And they had stuff, maybe a small box of Nerds and a miniature candy bar, and maybe a Tootsie Roll and a piece of bubble gum or something in it. But anytime people took the time and effort to put together the whole little treat bag was just tops in my book. And I wish more people had done it back then. But, we're all different. Some people couldn't afford to do that. Some people chose to be, I don't know, maybe they saw that as the easy way out and they wanted to try to find the most unique single piece candy they could give it out. But I always loved the little treat bags. So it was more bang for your buck. You'd stop someplace and get one piece of something here, and then you come over here and you've got the whole little goodie bag.
Yeah. Yeah, we had none of those people on our block.
Really? Well, like I said, I was fortunate that I had a bunch of these elderly women who love seeing kids and, done it right. The best lady on that street, her name was Claire. I'm not going to say her last name, but she was a widow and she was older, and she actually sprung for full-size candy bars. And she would buy a multitude of different ones, and she'd had this big bowl, and when you came trick-or-treating, you got to pick whichever full-size candy bar you wanted. So we always tried to make that our first stop because you didn't want all the good things getting gone, like the Twix or the Crackle bars or, get there first and have the best selection.
We had older folks on both of our blocks, but they were hit or miss because you could get like money like that. Like I said, I remember getting like pencils and erasers too, just randomly, not like in a goodie bag or anything, but they'd throw those in and I'd be like, okay.
So is that on your least favorite list?
I didn't put it on the least favorite list, but it was just something that I could use and it would be fun for the Halloween season, take them to school or whatever. But
well, it would be fun if you got them before Halloween. You get them on Halloween. You're like, what am I going to do with this tomorrow? I need a Thanksgiving pencil now.
Right. You're digging through your bag and you see this thing, which could be an eraser or could be something gummy, and you have to make the determination. That was my only qualm about it, let me sniff this. Okay, this is an eraser. I don't want to eat this. But just a couple more one more from my list, my favorites list, and those were bottle caps.
Oh, yes.
I loved bottle caps. And of course,
still love bottle caps.
Yeah, and I still do too. Everybody loved their pop or soda, we called it pop up north.
Yeah, we called it pop here too.
It just had those awesome flavors like root beer, and you never knew which flavor you were going to get in those little packs. So I can't remember how many they came in back in the day, but typically
3.
Now there's 2 or 3. Yeah. I love bottle caps.
Now,
Those are
surely
so good.
you've seen those big bins of the movie theater size boxes of candy at Walmart for $1 a piece. They have those big boxes of bottle caps mixed in there.
Oh, do they? Okay.
Yeah, I've bought them from there for years.
I haven't dug through one of those in a while to see what was in there. So
You can probably get some hot tamales in there too.
yeah, I'm pretty sure you can. And Mike and Ike and all those same kind of
Now, I like Good and Plenty's though. Good and Plenty's my candy.
Oh, no, the purple and white ones.
Yeah, the licorice.
No, that's like the black licorice flavor, right?
Yeah, that's the good licorice flavor. There is no other licorice than black. People who call red vines licorice, that's not licorice. Licorice comes from the licorice tree, and they don't have red vine licorice trees growing out in the wild. That's a figment of somebody on the left coast's imagination.
Yeah, okay.
Now, I like red vines and Twizzlers, but that's not licorice. People need to get out of calling it that. It can be twisted and shaped like it, but it don't mean it's licorice.
Okay, so I still got the candy store's worst top 10 Halloween candies. Number 8 is licorice, and number 9 is Good and Plenty.
Fake news. Fake news. CNN, fake news.
Yeah, I can't stand the black licorice flavor. Nope. Or the licorice flavor, as you say.
Yeah, licorice.
All right, let's get into some of the ones we don't like.
I like a Tootsie Roll. Don't get me wrong. But at the end of the night, when you empty your bag and half of it was the little Tootsie Roll midgets, you're like, what are all these people doing? Can we not pick up something a little better than Tootsie Rolls? Because I would get 40, 50 Tootsie Rolls every Halloween. I'm like, come on.
Yeah.
This whole bag's full of these things.
Yeah, those are always the last in my bag, too. You're like, you get down to the end, it's like Tootsie Rolls and I don't know what, erasers.
Well, same thing.
Right. But back in the day, they didn't have the different flavor Tootsie Rolls. How do you feel about like the newer flavors, like fruit?
There's only one flavor of Tootsie Roll.
I knew it.
The rest of them are something else. I do like the vanilla ones though, but they're not Tootsie Roll. Tootsie is a brand of chocolate.
What I like to do is take one of the chocolate and one of the vanilla, eat them together.
Now that's a swell idea.
Thank me
like
later.
that.
Thank me later.
I'll thank you now. I'll have some. Oh shoot, the kids ain't going trick or treating. I mean, I got to buy that stuff now. Gosh. Oh no. The shipping department at work has a bowl of candy. I bet they'll have some out. I'll sneak in there and get some. Yeah. I'll try that Monday.
There you go. All right, on my least favorite list, circus peanuts. I remember an older lady putting circus peanuts in a baggie and giving those things out. I cannot stand them. Oh,
I guess it's better than just dropping them loose in your trick or treat bag.
Right, still, but I don't know. They were just, you never knew what kind you were going to get. Are you going to get the ones that they've been out in their jar for 2 months that you could use to stop a door with, or are you getting the squishy ones that are fresh?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I can eat 2 or 3 individual circus peanuts about once a year. I'm not a big fan of them in general. I'll eat them every now and then.
Can't even do that.
But as a Halloween candy trick or treat, you're right. That's got no place. We don't need that. Now it's something that I like, but get it like a candy apple or a caramel apple on Halloween. And there were some folks who would make these with love, and you know, it's an exorbitant treat. But they give it to you and you're holding it and you're like, what the hell am I going to do with this for the next 3 hours? I can't put it in a bag. I'm going to get sticky everywhere. What are you doing? If you're having a Halloween party, great. Make caramel apples, candy apples, feed them to people. But to give them to a kid who's going to be walking up and down the street for the next couple hours, what are you thinking?
Yeah. Fruit has no business on Halloween night, in my opinion.
No, but I tell you what's fun, though. You want to have some pranks with some mean kids that you don't like? Get you a big white onion and turn it into a caramel or candy apple. You can't fill it with an onion and watch them bite into that sucker.
There's a good idea.
Now, speaking of good ideas, and we're talking about horrible Halloween treats. Every year on the Jimmy Kimmel Show, Cousin Sal does a video of bad trick-or-treat treats. I don't know if you've ever seen these or not.
No.
But he sets up these hidden cameras around his house and his front door, and these kids come, and he always acts like he forgot it's Halloween, and he just finds them stuff to give them. And these things are hilarious because my favorite one is when there'll be 4 or 5 kids and they'll knock on the door. He's like, "Oh, is it Halloween?" They're like, "Yeah, trick or treat." And he's like, "Oh, hold on, I'll find you something." And he comes back with like a loaf of bread and he opens it up and he's dropping a slice in each bag. And the whole video is just to capture the reactions of the kids.
Right.
And I think my other favorite besides that was a kid came. He's like, "Okay, I got something here for you. Hold out your hands." And he holds his hands out and Sal starts scooping ice cream into his hands and pouring chocolate syrup on it. And the kid just starts digging in face first and just eating it, getting it all over himself. There are several of those videos on YouTube you can watch, like Jimmy Kimmel Bad Halloween Candy or whatever. And he does one every year. So the day after Halloween, there'll be one up there, a new one to watch.
Meanwhile, the parents out in the car are like, "You're walking home. You're not getting into my car."
Yeah, well, Jimmy, the Jimmy Kimmel Show is popular, and Cousin Sal's a reoccurring character on there. So people kind of know where he lives, and they, I think, purposely go there now to get their kids on camera and stuff. So the parents are cool with it. But you could tell back in the early days, the first 1 or 2 he filmed, when the parents are in the scene with them, the look of disgust on their face is priceless because they don't know what's going on, that this is just a gag. And I'm sure probably you don't see it on camera, but I'm sure after he does that to the kids, they probably give them some boatload of candy to make up for it afterwards. Yeah. So don't feel bad for them.
Okay. Okay. Another one for me, I just did not like, and I will eat a Butterfinger every once in a while, but Chico Stick. You remember Chico Stick?
Yeah, they was okay.
It's like the inside of a Butterfinger. The taste or the consistency of it, but I don't know what it was about them. It was just like this long thing that had the consistency of a tree branch, and you bite it off and it gets stuck to your teeth immediately and will not leave your teeth until it's like dissolved. I just didn't like I didn't like Chico Stick.
I don't reckon I have any more. I mean, other than just people who would go, I guess these days the closest comparison would be going to the Dollar Tree and buying the biggest bag of hard candy they can find individually wrapped and dropping it in. And, the flavor's never right on it. And, yeah. A little more imagination, folks.
Right. Yeah, just come on, man. I got 2 more. The one that my dad, I would give every piece of this I had to my dad because he just loved it and I couldn't stand it. And that's the black and orange taffy, what they call the peanut butter kisses. Hate those, man.
Peanut butter kisses. I don't know that I'm familiar with that.
It's like that peanut butter kind of individually wrapped taffy stuff.
Oh, you mean like Mary Jane's or Bit of Honey?
No. It's the wrappers themselves are either like orange or black.
Oh, yeah. I know what you're talking about. Yeah, that real cheap, just buy it at the Dollar Tree by the bag full of stuff. Yeah.
Oh, Dad loved those, and I was glad to shove them his way. Here, you want some of my candy? You take all those, and leave all the nerds and everything else, alone. So at least I had some currency to give him each Halloween, so he wasn't digging into my bag when I was asleep.
Well, those were just a cheaper knockoff version of Mary Jane's or Bit of Honey, which I love both of those.
I'm not a big fan of those. I will eat one once in a while, but. The other one that I had that I really hated getting was the boxes of Boston baked beans.
Oh, I love Boston baked beans.
Oh my gosh, dude, come on. They're like, it's almost like tricking you because they're like, it got the candy shell, but then it turns into like peanut butter shards and you need something to drink immediately after eating those, man. They're just so dry and, I
think they're good.
No. Not on a candy night. I don't want peanuts coated in whatever that was on Halloween night.
Just a candy shell. It was good.
No, didn't do it for me. Put some chocolate in there or something.
I don't have any specific. I don't have any specific memories of getting them for Halloween, but just in general, I like those. And the other candied peanut, maybe they're just called candied peanuts, where they got like the little bumps all over them. the star bites or whatever they're called. Cultured people, they'll know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.